All right, welcome back to another episode of Two Plane Sports. Today we're going to be doing a game preview. We're putting the bad game two behind us. Moving on to game three versus Tulane before we dive into any of that game. As always, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, turn on the notification bell so you know when we're posting a video. Thanks to the new season, we're now posting Sundays at around 11 a.m., Tuesdays at 6 a.m., and Fridays at 6 a.m. So make sure to turn on the notification bell again so you know when we post a new video. And the audio does get posted about a day later on Apple Podcast and Spotify. So if you prefer to listen to these podcasts, make sure to go follow us there so you don't miss an episode while you're driving or working out or however you listen to podcasts. All right, let's get into it. So Oklahoma moves on from week two, getting a W, whatever means necessary. They end up going 2-0, facing Tulane, who you can have a very good argument could be coming in as 2-0 if it wasn't for a couple of last minute penalties to end the game versus Kansas State. That being said, they are coming in to Norman 1-1. Probably an angry, set out for revenge Tulane team. Not going to lie, kind of a scary sight for Oklahoma. Brandon, I'm going to kick it over to you. What do you think is going to be key for Oklahoma here against this Tulane squad that has shown flashes of good, if not great, team play over the first 2 weeks?
I mean, Tulane's a very good team. Yeah, forget about. I mean, they were an 11-win team last year. Last week they should have beat Kansas State. You know, they kind of gave the game away with a fumble that ends up being the winning touchdown for Kansas State. Then it looks like they try to battle back and tie it up, and they get called for offensive pass interference. The game could have been tied, could have went to overtime. If Tulane wins that game in Manhattan, Kansas against 17 K-State, they're going to come into Norman as a top 25 program, and that's something that would have been fun. But I think, as you just said, they're going to be pissed off now, and that's that is what it is there. So hopefully I think for Oklahoma, they have to score more than 2 points in a second half. They have to run the ball for more than 2.6 yards per carry. It's our recap of the Houston game. What happened in that game can't happen here, because if it does, we're going to be in trouble. I don't know what it looks like for Oklahoma as far as guys that are coming back. If we are getting anybody back, I think you definitely want to see Nick Anderson out there if possible. You definitely want to see Andrell Anthony back out there. I don't know about Hickman. I'm sure he'll still be out, but maybe Troy Everett can come back. You need to start getting some guys back, because obviously Temple was Temple. Houston was a little bit tougher. Shouldn't have been that close at all, but it was. They escaped. Tulane's tough. This is a game where you can't just show up and win. You gotta actually play. So it's gonna be interesting.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And Tulane, I know we both of us have just said Tulane is tough, but to put some numbers behind that, they bring in a brand new head coach in John Summerall, who was the head coach of Troy. He's had some Power 5 experience being at Kentucky under Mark Stoops as the co-DC. And he's had various other stops throughout his tenure. Now he's taking over, and he has a true freshman leading his team in Darian Mensah. Over the first two games, is completing 70% of his passes, 547 yards total, 4 touchdowns, 1 pick. Now he has taken 5 sacks, which Oklahoma is not much better than that with the offensive line situation, but their offensive line hasn't been fantastic either. And we do get to see a familiar face in Mario Williams coming back here. Now he's also had a good season so far himself. I think the last game he had 6 catches for like $120, something like that. So dude performed well against a big time opponent there on their schedule. So again, another guy that Oklahoma's going to need to focus on. The defense here, putting the offense aside, because that's definitely going to be something that's important, and I agree with what Brandon said. But the defense is going to have their hands full. The defensive line is going to step up. I think Grayson Halton this week earned SEC Defensive Player of the Week, which is awesome. Well deserved. I mean, we tweeted out and we talked about it in the last video. He's probably been the most consistent and definitely the best player on the defense so far through 2 games. And if he can keep if he can just be consistent that way, or hopefully improve throughout the season, that guy's future is bright, and hopefully he just improves on what he's done. If he sticks around for another year, which is a conversation for 10 weeks from now, but if he continues to improve like he has been, he's definitely a guy that's just going to start getting some attention for NFL from NFL scouts later this year. And then in the passing game, the one thing that really I know hasn't been tested uh, in these first two games for Oklahoma. During the first week, I mean, we were in a lot of plus territory, created a lot of turnovers, which is great. But you were also going against Temple, who was not great themselves. Last week, the offense gave or the defense gave up a lot of yards, but they were able to stop Houston for the most part, only allowing them to score 12 points and being on the field for almost 40 minutes. You got to reduce that. And that's going to be part by the offense improving, the run game, like Brandon said, hopefully the pass game. And we said it in the Houston recap. I genuinely believe that once wide receivers start coming back, even with the offensive line situation, it being what it is, it will help this offense because right now you are without your top four options in the wide receiver room. No Andrell last week, no Nick Anderson last week. You're missing Jaden Gibson for the rest of the year, and Jalil Farouk is out for at least another month and a half to 2 months for him to get back into football action. So Deion Burks being the only go-to guy, really the most dangerous play Oklahoma has is an RPO where he catches it for 5 yards and just hopes to not get hit too hard and keeps moving on because there's not much of a chemistry there as of right now with Brennan Thompson, and as fast as he is, we just for whatever reason it's not consistently there for the deep shot, and you're trotting out a lot of freshmen and Jaquez Petaway out there for some snaps. Run game, Gavin Sawchuk has not looked good. Coming into the season, there was a lot of high hopes for him, and not that saying he can't turn it around, but something's got to improve there. But Javante Barnes and Taylor Tatum and their limited action haven't been amazing either as a team. They're not running the ball well, so hopefully, I think if you just get two of those options back, if you can trot out a unit of three wide receivers there, where you just have to give them a breather every so often with these young guys, that will elevate this offense to not maybe be great or what it was under Levy and Lincoln Riley, but at least not look like Iowa, which is a step in the direction we need to be.
Yeah, I mean, you gotta be able to. I mean, defensively, going back to what you started off with, I think this Tulane game is perfect because it's been gradually getting tougher. Tulane is a perfect tune-up, is a perfect tough opponent to get you ready for Tennessee. They're not going to be Tennessee on offense, but they're definitely not Temple or Houston. They're right in the middle there. They're going to give you some shots. They're going to make some plays. They're a good enough offense with enough good players to expose you on some things if you're not perfect in every snap. And we know in football you're never going to be perfect in every snap. Tulane's going to hit some plays. I think you want to probably hold them to around 17-20. I think would be a pretty fair defensive performance for our guys. They just scored 27 in Kansas State last week. Could have been a lot more. They had some mistakes and some things hurt them there. But if we hold them to around 17-20, I think defensively you feel pretty good, especially if you get a turnover in there, maybe a couple sacks, maybe 3 sacks or so. You're feeling real good about the defense still. But let's say that happens. Perfect world, we hold them to 20 points, two sacks, and a pick or something like that. Is 20 points going to be enough for Tulane to win? Because last week it would have been. And then that goes back to your point. I think the run game is big. I mean, definitely getting the any receivers back is not going to suck. It's only going to help. But I don't. It's the offensive line. I don't know, man. I feel like it can't be this bad all season because if it is, it doesn't matter who's back. We're in trouble. And Gavin, I agree, has not looked great in his limited attempts, but I think last week he only had four carries. The week before he only had 6, so he's looking at 10 carries right now throughout 2 games. And then that's really just that's not going to help him, or it's not going to help the line. That's something that has to go up. But if it's not Gavin, I mean, that's fine. Then roll Javante Barnes for 15 carries. Roll Taylor Tatum for 15 carries. You got to get somebody and give them an opportunity to touch the ball, 15 times a game like a running back does, instead of just constantly rotating these guys out and nobody getting any groove or rhythm or anything like that. You got to be able to run the ball, and if we can finally get that established even a little bit, it's going to open up things for Jackson Arnold, for these receivers, for these tight ends. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think defensively you can hold them to 20, but then yeah, you've got to find a way to score 20 points, which is something that I never would have thought we would be sitting here talking about as Oklahoma fans. We've been spoiled for a long time, even before Lincoln Ryan, all that shit. We've always scored points. We scored points last season. It's something's got to happen here on offense.
Yeah, and as we're talking about it, I've been just kind of going in my head thinking like, why is it different this year than years before? Obviously, like the easy answer is we have a new offensive coordinator in Seth Luttrell and Coach Finley, but we, like you just mentioned too, like we've been good on offense since before Lincoln Riley. The offense has never really been an issue for Oklahoma in multiple decades now. I I and some people are gonna hate me for saying it, but we are in a trance as Oklahoma fans. And I'm not saying that Coach B is bad, but over the last few seasons, to start every year, we are trotting out a unit of 5 brand new offensive linemen every single year. And yes, to an extent, it's not completely on him because the transfer portal affects every roster. Graduation is just something you can't control as a coach. But you got to be able to prepare and reload. And that's something that I think if we look objectively, regardless of how much we love the guy as a coach and as a Sooner, and what he did after the whole Lincoln Riley fiasco and sticking around and what have you, that's one thing he's fallen short at is reloading consistently with talent that can back up. Because it's not that he hasn't recruited well, but for whatever reason, he doesn't trust the recruits that he has on campus already. Very similar to Coach Finley. They've recruited good talent, but for whatever reason, they always look to the portal to piece this together. Because if you look at it since Brent Venables has been around, his highest ranked offensive lineman I think was Caden Green. Whatever, he's gone, but he's recruited really good talent out of high school as well. And you have Logan Howland there, who hasn't really gotten much play. Joshua Bates looked good last week towards the end of the game when he got more run. Dumbass mistake at the end of the game. Can't take your helmet off there, but you have to love the passion and just tell them, hey, how about you keep your helmet on and then take it off when get pissed off and yell when you get to the sideline. Ito Zada, guy that was getting pumped up a little bit during spring and summer ball, hasn't seen the field much at all. So like at some point you have to look at this and be like, all right, why don't you trust the guys that you're bringing in early enough in their career? I get it, they might be young, but that is college football. At some point, you have to give them a chance. If it wasn't for that, like Caden Green wouldn't have been what Caden Green did last year. You had to trust the young guy, and he came through. He followed through. You recruited them for a reason, so you got to put him out there. And that kind of speak to the same extent, not as much. DeMarco Murray over the last 2-3 seasons, for whatever reason, going into the first couple weeks, we have no idea. Even though we've seen these guys produce over the last couple of years, Gavin Sawchuk doesn't get the reps as a traditional running back one does in the first few games, and then at game 4, not even 4, 5 or 6, that's when you kind of establish your lead back in the pecking order of that room. But that's not true for the rest of the team. You know who quarterback one is, obviously. You can't really have question marks there though, so that's fair. You know who your starting wide receivers are more often than not. While there's questions on your rotation, you always know who your 1 and 2 are going into the season as fans and probably as coaches because you just trust the production they've given. Your corners have been consistent. Woody Washington hasn't really had his spot questioned since he's really been consistent at that starting spot. Gentry Williams, once he took over the spot last year, if he's not injured, he's in there. Billy Bowman, true for him. Really, everyone on the defense is pretty consistent. So that's the only thing I look at this team as a whole, and why are we always questioning this unit specifically, and why is it any different from the rest of the team?
I think Eddie Pierre-Louis is another guy that he showed up a little bit in the Temple game. I think we need to give him some more runs too. I mean Bates, I think I agree. I mean without his stupid ass penalty, he was really solid. There's chances there. And this is what it feels like right now. We're the Iowa Sooners. All this shit, we can't score. It doesn't look great. We watched a terrible performance, and we did. I think I compared it on our recap to the worst performance I think I've ever seen at that stadium. And we've been to probably 100 games, or if not more. Just watching this team over the years. Luckily we won last week, but I mean it was terrible. But it is what it is. Now here's the thing. I think you brought up a great example on our recap video yesterday on Sunday when you compared this potentially to Alabama versus South Florida last year. I mean, because that's a thing too. It was week 2 for Alabama as well last season. Granted, they were on the road. We were at home, which I guess makes a little bit of a difference. But Alabama looked like they couldn't beat anybody after that South Florida game. They survived South Florida. Didn't have anything going, couldn't score the ball. I mean, they looked exactly like Oklahoma just looked against Houston. The great thing is it's week 2. We can come out against Temple on Saturday, and we can look like an Oklahoma offense again. We can run for 150 yards, pass for 300, score 35, 40 points, and all of a sudden, everybody forgets about how horrible Houston was week 2. We forget about the offensive line issues. We forget about the receiving issue. We forget about all the issues that we have seen through 2 weeks, and especially last week with one great performance. And that's something that, that definitely can happen. We saw it with Jackson Arnold last season in the bowl game. It's not a lack of talent for Jackson Arnold. I think I don't know. It's the line. It's the play calling. Something, and they have to figure this out literally on the fly, because last week was not it. They need to call some adjustments, figure something out, get the ball moving. And exactly, I mean, if you look good against Tulane, against a good football team in Tulane, come out there and let's say we smoke them. Let's say we cover the spread. I think it's 14 or something right now, but let's say we beat them 35-10, something like that. Let's say we just hammer them. I mean, the feel of this team and the feel for the fans is going to just change so quick, and that's an opportunity that Oklahoma has, and it can happen. I'm not saying it's going to happen. It's something that can happen. This team has the talent. The players are there. I think they've just got to figure it out on offense, and I think I'd rather be bad to start the season on offense versus defense, but this is like a new level of bad right now that we're seeing. So
Yeah.
they just got to figure it out a little bit on offense, move the ball a little bit, and all is going to be forgiven. It's going to be the Alabama-South Florida effect that you brought up last week or on Sunday, and I think that was a money comparison because that's really the opportunity that Oklahoma has, and let's hope that's what we see on Saturday.
And that's what it needs to be. The one, I don't know, it's going to be interesting. And at this point, it's crazy to say this early in the season, but for Tulane, I mentioned at the top of the show, like they're coming in like probably pissed after last week's results. I mean, they had offensive pass interference that even Coach Kleinman said like pretty questionable call, but he was happy they called it. Which at the end of the day, it's sports; things aren't always going to go your way. They're going to be out for revenge, seeking, looking out, trying to get theirs back. This is also a game that has a lot of playoff implications for them because if they don't win this game, they more than likely are out of the picture. But if they can take Oklahoma down, Oklahoma is likely put in a scenario where you got to basically sweep the table or go 10-2 and somehow beat some of those really tough opponents throughout your SEC schedule to be in the conversation for like spot 11, 12, something like that to sneak in the playoffs. So for both these teams, this game, we going into the season, we talked about how Tennessee's kind of the measuring stick because we didn't think that this offense could be this bad. But that's not the case now. Now that we're looking at it, now that we're moving throughout the season, this offense is not good. So if Oklahoma finds a way to lose this game, which I hope it doesn't happen. Obviously, none of us hope that happens. But just speaking realistically, if Oklahoma finds a way to lose this game and Tulane doesn't live up to the standards of being a fringe playoff team or a playoff team, this could look really bad for the resume going into the playoffs. And even though it's 12 teams, everyone has to have a good resume. And I think this season is kind of a year, like it's establishing what a 12-team playoff looks like. Everyone is going to start scheduling better games beginning from game one. You're still going to have your cupcake games here and there, but you're going to have 10 hard games, 2 easy games, not 3 or 4 easy games and 8 hard games, and your 8 conference games that are supposed to be more difficult. Like we're gonna start saying consistently, teams schedule 9 to 10, hard games versus good opponents, so that they have a good built up resume going into the playoff selection.
I think Oklahoma has to win this football game. I don't think it's if you lose this game. I mean, if you lose this game and win out, obviously it's not going to matter. But I mean, I think if you lose this game, you're not going to win out. You don't have on the schedule after this Tulane game. You don't have a gimme game or just show up and win game until you face Maine in week 9 or something like that. And granted, Auburn didn't look fantastic. They lost to California on Saturday, who's not a very good football team. But I mean, going into Jordan Air for the first time is going to be tough. Tennessee is going to be Tennessee. Texas is Texas. South Carolina, for as terrible as they looked in week 1 against Old Dominion, flipped the script and beat the shit out of Kentucky. It's after this game. I mean, this game's not a gimme. Like you don't have anything on your schedule that is just that it's a free win anymore. It's you can't lose to Tulane. You have to start 3-0. I think you even have to get to 4. You have to beat Tulane is what it comes down to. And then, but you have to. I don't know. Just if they can again. I'm banking on Oklahoma looking good on Saturday, coming out looking like the Oklahoma that we expected to see all season, because that team is still there. And hopefully for next Sunday's recap, we're in jolly spirits and having a great time, and it's all fun and dandy.
I'm with you. Let's just speak into existence. Week 2 was Oklahoma's South Florida, Alabama versus South Florida game of last year. It has to be it, because that offense wasn't good for Oklahoma this last week. And week 2, like you said, and like we mentioned over in the last video, Alabama looked like they were going to be an easy out for every SEC team after week 2 versus South Florida. So we just have to make sure that that is what it was, just a fluke of a game. Things are getting figured out on the offensive side, where it's getting cleaned up throughout the week, and they just take off from here.
See, now South Florida, Alabama is the perfect example, because that's real. But I think one for Oklahoma is last season against SMU. Granted, they covered late, but they covered. The offense didn't look great. They scored 28 points. And I think a couple, or well, at least one of those was set up by the defense. And I remember after that game, the panic button was starting to, and that, I mean, that SMU game, we looked 1,000 times better than we did against Houston. But it's the same general idea is we didn't look great. It wasn't perfect. People thought it was going to be bad. That team ended up winning 10 games. Should have won every game. It's one game at the end of the day. Was that Houston game? Tulane is a great opponent, a tough opponent, like you said, coming in pissed off. Oklahoma should be coming in pissed off as well. I think everybody on that coaching staff, there's no way that they went home after that Houston game going like, man, we're fantastic. We're gonna be something right now. They're probably just as pissed. They're more pissed off than all of us are as fans. This is what they do. This is their job. Yeah, is to make sure this team looks good, plays good, does all that shit. So, I think you're going to have two teams pretty pissed off whenever they square off on Saturday. And Oklahoma's got a great opportunity to beat a great team and kind of beat them good, and get everybody happy and feeling good again. And like you said, we're going to speak that into existence. The Sunday recap video is going to be all jolly and in good spirits.
Definitely. And a couple things before we wrap up this video. I believe earlier today I read a report that seems like Gary and Hatchett is dealing with some injuries. Hopefully it's not anything serious where he can get back on the field, because even though he might not be the best offensive lineman, he is an offensive lineman, and we need those now more than ever. And then one thing last segment, we haven't done this over the first couple weeks, and I don't know why, just an oversight by us. X factors for Oklahoma, offense and defensively. You can pick a unit or you can pick a player. I'll go first to give you a second to think. On offense, I'm going to go with running backs. Just as a unit, they need to be more effective this week. It doesn't matter who wants to step up. It doesn't seem like this team has quite decided who's going to be their RB1, if it's going to be Gavin, Javonte, or Taylor Tatum. But one of them has to take that reign and show they can be a guy to be relied on for the rest of the season and make plays in the running game, because that will inevitably free up the pass game, and you're just going to eat clock, where the defense can finally sit down for at least 45 seconds before they have to get back out in the field. On the defensive side, cornerbacks, not just creating turnovers, but also making it hard on Darian Mensah to complete anything. A guy that's completing 70% of his passes is making the right decision more often than not, even if it's a dump off route or long 20 plus yard plays. Like, you got to make it tough for him. Making that not, I know the defensive line is going to do their job, but can the cornerbacks be in position to make plays, PBUs, picks, or just limit the wide receiver from getting any yards after the catch? Just tackle them in the spot and make them earn every single yard.
Yeah, no, I'm going to pick both sides of the line. I think, yeah, like I said, they're just a minute ago. I think the talent there is there on offense. Running backs is a good one. I probably would have went there, but in order for the running backs to be good, they've got to have a little bit of a crease, a little bit of a hole every now and again. So hopefully the offensive line plays well, and I'm going to take the defensive line for defense as well, because for the same reason, I think Darian Mensah is a damn good quarterback that nobody knows about yet, but they're going to learn. He's tough. That Kansas State game, they threw for almost 350 yards, rushed for 150. Those Tulane receivers are good. We know what Mario Williams is kind of like. He's playing really, really good ball right now for Tulane, so he's going to be out there trying to do his thing. But I think you can beat them on the line play, and if the defensive line is consistently beating their offensive line, it's not going to have every snap, but if you're consistent on beating them, you're definitely going to limit both their pass and run game. If they get 500 yards of offense against us, I think we're going to be in a tough spot. We'll probably be looking just like Kansas State, trying to battle it to the end. So I think you win both trenches. That's what I want to see.
Yeah, and that would be SEC football at this point. That's what we have signed up for the very foreseeable future. All right, great video. I hope you guys all enjoyed. Make sure to hit the comment section. Let us know what you guys think of this Tulane team, what Oklahoma's chances against Tulane, what you would like to see improved, who your X factors are for this game. Make sure to like, subscribe to the channel, turn on notification bell. Follow us in all social medias. All the links are down below. And again, if you prefer to listen to the podcast, everything is posted about a day later on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. So make sure to go check us out there at 2planesports. Thank you guys all for watching. We will see you guys next time.